KX News, putting North Dakota first.
Our mild but dry winter may have been a blessing in disguise for our farmers who are planting their spring and summer crops.
Meteorologist Kenny Miller breaks down our overall ag situation here and across the state in this week's Ag Watch.
Ag Weather Watch on KX is sponsored by United Agronomy.
So if we kick things off here with another look at our percent of crops planted for our barley, corn, oats, and spring wheat, we are well ahead of this time last year, really across the board. In fact, all four crops are showing at least 7% ahead of the 5-year average, with spring wheat being 15% ahead of that 5-year average. In fact, 49% of our spring wheat is already in the ground, compared to last year's slow start, where we were only at 17% this time last year. Our farmers are certainly working hard to get as much planting done as possible during these dry weather periods. We had some good stretches of dry weather last week to get that planting done, but most of our locations saw around 1/4 of an inch or rain really over the last 7 days. The latest North Dakota crop report states that 4.5 of the last 7 days were ideal for planting, which is up from 2.5 over the past week. Our latest drought monitor index is largely unchanged compared to this past week, which isn't really that big of a surprise considering the lack of rainfall over the last week. The most noteworthy drought concerns are once again in our northeastern locations and down towards that southwestern corner, where moderate drought concerns continue to plague those locations. We're also a bit drier than normal in our northwestern areas up towards Williston, as we really haven't seen that much rain in that location over the last month or so. So while our planting numbers are exceeding expectations, we will need to see more rain once we get these crops in the ground and get closer to our growing season. So if we look at our current topsoil moisture condition pie chart, we see that 71% of our topsoils across the state have an adequate amount of moisture, which is overall largely unchanged compared to last week, but it's still up 1% from last week. As we also mentioned last week, we certainly want to see our short and very short categories get down to around 10% compared to the 21 that we're seeing right now. And most of these concerns are in that northeastern corner. And these concerns will become more prevalent again once planting winds down and we get closer into the growing phase of the summer. Our current rainfall expected outlook for really the next few days, which does include this past weekend, it notes some rains primarily in our central locations, extending into northeastern portions of the state. So that is good news for those moderate drought concerns in our northeastern locations. But we also see that lack of moisture still across the western portion of our state. So as a result of this outlook, we may see some slight improvements again in our northeastern pocket, but we expect to see those drought concerns persist there and particularly out towards the west. We look forward to seeing you again next week with all the latest agricultural updates. For the KX Storm Team, I am meteorologist Kenny Miller.
So, Kenny, with all of the numbers that you just shared with us, why do you think that we have more crop in the ground this year compared to last year?
Well, last year we had all that snow throughout our winter, and it really bled into the spring season with all the flooding that we had with the late snow melt. I think it was very hard to get the plants in the ground earlier than it has been this year. So this year we are so far ahead of schedule compared to last year. It's certainly good news here for the overall yields coming out.
Yeah, I just got back from home this weekend. A lot of our farmers up north are happy. They've got a lot of their planting already done. So.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you so much, Kenny.
Still to come on KX.